Welcome to part 2 of our special episode with Mike Silver. And welcome to Tell the Whole Damn World. It's Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, and it's another great day to be a bear. For those of you who aren't familiar, we're the podcast for Golden Bear fans who love the University of California. If you're like us and are unabashedly and unapologetically all about Cal, you've found the right place. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Reza Serafinejad, and I'm not going to spend much time with an intro, but just a reminder that we would super appreciate all of you out there liking and subscribing. And please share us with all your Cal friends. Just tell them to go to tellthewholedamnworld.com. Okay, without further ado, we're going to jump right back into our interview with Mike Silver. You've been around the game for so long. You are in a position to get to know these Cal athletes who've bled blue and gold their whole time there at Cal and then have gone on to these wonderful professional careers. If you can tell us a little bit about, your relationships with some of the Cal athletes. I mean, you brought a tear to my eye a little bit when you wrote that story about Jared Goff and his road to redemption essentially there in Detroit. And that just was really touching as a Cal fan. And if you could speak to that.
Well, first of all, I'm grateful to all Cal athletes in every sport for representing our great university. And I remember Shelley Onstead, our field hockey coach, great alum. They were playing up at UC Davis, and it might have been when they were going through stadium stuff, or maybe they were playing in a tournament, or maybe they were playing the Aggies. But I was up there, and she's like, "Hey, can you come talk to the team, before the game?" And I had no material. It was like very spontaneous. And I think it was when they had no home. They were going through a Title IX lawsuit and they had nowhere to play. And I think I just went in cold and I was like, okay, hey guys, welcome. So first of all, it's never easy, right? And I was just like, we can all relate, right? Like, Ahmad, we used to have to fight for class cards, literally.
Come on, man.
I
used to hustle the cards.
Yeah, I needed you. Yeah. So we Cal is the greatest. We always used to say Cal people were ready for the real world because we had to fight and scratch and claw. We didn't have our hand held, And somebody my freshman year told me at Stanford they teach you to wash your hands after you urinate. At Cal they tell you don't piss on your hands, and it's a saying I repeat often. But we know, like all the things I mentioned earlier about creativity and defiance and all that, the other overriding Cal value is nothing is handed to us ever. We always do everything the hard way, even win. And we're therefore prepared to take it. And we're more resilient. I mean, I was doing the book with Natalie Coughlin, and I got to know all the swimmers in that 03-04 season. And they were getting ready. They ended up beating Stanford for the first time in a long time in dramatic fashion, but which is in the book if anyone reads Golden Girl. But early in the season, they were talking about Stanford, and they were like, "Man, I hope it rains when we, swim against them." And I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Oh, we'll be tougher. Like we can, like if it's raining hard, like that'd be better for us. Like they're all, pampered and everything, but so I love all Cal athletes. I thank them. I think we all, as Bears, can relate to a lot of things. But like you mentioned, Jared Goff, like to me, I did talk to a lot of NFL people, including Jeff Fisher, who was the coach of the Rams before they traded for him and drafted him. And I said, look, usually when a guy goes number one overall, he's had a pretty smooth journey and it's gone really well. I'm like, this kid from getting benched at Oregon freshman year because the ball was wet and he couldn't throw and messing up his shoulder and leaving a big game that I think we gave up like 26 touchdowns to Ty Montgomery in the first half. I mean, one of those nightmarish moments ever. And the next year we're subbing in our running quarterback first to catch Northwestern off guard. But by the end, at big game, we're taking Jared Goff out of the red zone and putting in Luke Rubenser. And I'm like, dude, he's going to leave. Like, thankfully he's, like my daughter, his parents are Bears and he's all, propagandized since birth, but like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I remember saying to my friends, we have a future probable top 5 NFL quarterback, and we're taking him out for, Vanilla Vic in the red zone. Like, what are we doing, dude? And so I remember the first time I met him, because it was after that big game, and I was not in a very good mood. The sophomore year big game, and we lost, and I was with Margot Kerr, Steve's wife. Steve and I grew up together, known Margot for a long, long time, close friend. And, at the time, Maddie, her daughter, was a volleyball player at Cal. She and my daughter were friends. And Maddie was like, God, come back with me after the game, to me and my wife and some of our crew. And they were like, come back to Clark Kerr, to the player parking lot. I want you to meet some people. And I want to introduce you to Jared's parents. And they went to Cal when you went to Cal. And, Jared's mom, Nancy, always tells the story. She thought I was a raving lunatic. I was so upset. And, I always joke with Jared, he handled it so much better than I did. I was like, and he was like, it's going to be okay. We're going to come back. We're going to beat BYU. We're going to go to a bowl game. We're going to win. And next year we're going to go to the Rose Bowl. It didn't turn out that way, but he was just so chill. So yeah, I love the athletes who, in the face of great pressure, are at their best. So, in softball, the Jolene Henderson or Christina Thorson, or certainly Chelsea Spencer, our coach now, is also one of my favorite players ever.
Yep. Yep.
And just so many people over the years, from Richard Rodgers, your former teammate, on out, where I just like, when the stakes were the highest and the most was required, instead of wilting or it feeling like an injustice, they just figured out some way to, make it insane. So if you are the guy who touches the ball twice in the play and really, getting Dwight Garner, may rest in peace, to at the last second get you that ball back and keep it alive, and the embodiment of that, the spirit of that. And so when his son goes up on national television and catches a Hail Mary
Yes, sir.
that he has no business catching, from a Cal quarterback, Aaron
Yes, sir.
Rodgers, same name, no relation, and wins that game, and the whole sports world is going, how can it be? I'm like, well, it's crazy, but also, if you knew what his dad did and what all of the Cal people think and feel and vibe off of, like, it's a little less crazy. So I have so many favorite Cal athletes, but usually when I think about them, it's the people who did things that, I just, were so audacious that it just seemed, Leja Clarendon or Kevin Johnson, my contemporary, so many that just, did things that just didn't seem fathomable.
Well, look, I'm going to say this, that we talked a little bit about, Richard, making the play at the end of, as their daughter swings out on a swing pass and he's running. And my son, having watched the game, he said to me in 2022, right before going into the Hall of Fame, he said, we're walking in for the Hall of Fame lunch, and I get a call on the phone. It's Richard Rodgers. Freddie Williams is calling, but
I
he's
love
in the
Freddie.
car with Richard
Love Freddie.
Rodgers and John Sullivan, and they're in D.C. With back then the Commanders, and they said, "Hey, Ma, da we want to call you and say congrats, da and we're all together." I said, "Lord have mercy. I hope the police aren't following you, because I want you to hang up now." But
Quick aside, I had a day drinking session in Leesburg, Old Town Leesburg, Virginia, that included Richard and Fred, who was visiting. I completely agree.
you know,
Like,
you
I
know.
was,
And so,
anyway.
as we're going through this, right? And I said, your nephew Brandon wants to tell you guys something. He said, if my dad, who kind of leaped, the receiver's blocking you and brings you to the ground, you leap up and grab him, and Richard comes over the top and clocks daughter. If you all don't get him, game is over.
Yeah.
There is
Oh,
big play.
I
There is
remember.
no lateral. And I'm
Yep.
here to, and when I tell you, I never thought about that until my son says that in 2022, and I'm getting ready to walk into the luncheon that they held for the Hall of Famers. We never thought of that ever until he said it and said, what? And they watched it that night and they called me and said, Brandon was right. If you and Rich, if you don't even delay this guy, Richard ran from midfield to come get this guy behind you, the game's over. It's a
You
wrap.
know,
And
it's so
here's the other
like
piece. I talked to
I
Dotterer, and I said to Dotterer, did you know that? He said, not only, because I was like, who was that running back? He said, Ahmad. That was me. I
yeah.
said, get out of here. I watched it again and said, oh my God. Because I reached out to him that night because he and I are friends, been friends since after Cal. But he said, Ahmad, that was me. He said, I couldn't believe that you got up, you grabbed me from the ground. Richard comes over and clocks me. And he said, that's what he remembers. Forget all that other stuff. And I said, I know why you feel that way, but forget all that other stuff. He said, game's over. I see touchdown.
I mean, to me, like that is the standard always that I want in every important game in every sport for Cal. Like, you know, what I saw again, my first game ever at Memorial as a high school senior, what I saw was seniors selling out the last time they would step on a football field,
Yeah.
most of them,
Yes,
many
sir.
of them.
Yes.
It meaning so much to the players, to the students, to the fans. Every play there was just a crispness and a emotion and a meaning. And you know, the two touchdowns we scored were insane,
Yeah.
like incredible plays. The obviously the play itself is, you know, changed the world, but like it, you know, that play you just mentioned, you know, Richard going over the back of a receiver to knock down a ball,
Yeah.
you know, right before that, you know,
Yeah.
the pass rush getting to Elway the 3 times before the 4th and 17.
Greg Beagle. Greg
Yeah.
Beagle, who I walked in with the team, number 34. He hadn't played in game. He hadn't really played in a game since we lost to, when he was a starter, we lost to Florida, got beat down by Yuko was the quarterback, and Chris Collinsworth didn't catch a pass that day. That was a great season for us around DBs, but they didn't need to. When Yuko walked in, he had a face mask, looked like a lineman. Somebody said, they are not throwing the ball at all today. And then, but Greg Beagle comes back after all these years and makes a great tackle. Makes a great tackle on Elway and chases him down.
I mean, so that to me is the standard always. And, you know, when we've done epic things, it's usually that vibe. And I'll, you know, I'll said to my friends before, like, we need full focused, you know, and crowd too. And it's fleeting. You don't always get it. And listen, trust me, I've been through every emotion. I'll take any big game win, no matter how trashy it feels in any way. I'll take a tip ball, I'll take a missed call, I'll take a fifth down. I'll just give me the axe over, you know, like say 1990, where we played so great and lost at the end, and you're like, oh my God. But like, you know, the standard to me is what you guys did that day. And let's say you had stopped the 4th and 17 and just won it that way. It would have still gone down to
Yeah,
me
it's been great.
one of the greatest
Ab-
rivalry, you know, victories and performances. So
Absolutely.
so thank you for not only doing that, but creating the sometimes appropriated but singular Cal iconic chant. And when whatever our holy grail is now, I still have Rose Bowl, but it's, a lot of weird things would have to fall in line. But like, let's say ACC championship, get in the playoff, beat Stanford, like that season happens. The Bear territory, the infatuation around the country with that is going to get real old real fast, because they're going to start feeling like Stanford people when they hear it, or SC people when we beat them and they hear it. They're going to be like, enough, okay? We know. And we'll be like, no, you don't know. We've been waiting for decades. And I'll leave you with this. So I grew up a Warrior fan in LA. And other than 1975, when I was 9 and we had that crazy championship, I got taunted by Laker fans my whole life, including Steve Kerr, who now knows I was right and agrees that he was wrong and I win in the end. But, our two sons both went to UC Santa Barbara, so in the UC family. And we were telling a story the other day. It was my wife's birthday. We were telling the story of, we were down there in Santa Barbara, and it was the 2022 playoff series against Luka and the Mavericks, and young Luka and the Mavericks. We were watching, I can't remember if it was game 3, but an earlier game of the series, and the Mavericks were winning big. And my wife and I, it was just me and her now at a brewery in downtown Santa Barbara. And my wife loves the Warriors, and she's friends with Stephen Margot, so of course she cares. But I might have cared a little more. And the Warriors made this great comeback. And, again, like, as a professional sports writer, I don't cheer, but when I'm NFL only and my close friend is coaching my childhood team, I'll compartmentalize. I was not at the Chronicle at the time covering them in any way. So I started getting kind of into the comeback, and I started getting loud, and I'm loud anyway. And my wife at one point was like, it's still light out. She's like, dude, you are really loud right now. And I was like, you know what? We're in Southern California. I grew up here. I grew up around all my Laker fan friends. I've been hearing this crap for decades. I'm going to be loud.
Well, look, I got to ask you the question we ask everybody, because you've laid it right there on the platter, my man. We ask people that question: what is your famous, heartfelt Bear territory moment? And I know you've given us a plethora, that's a cow word, a plethora of Bear territory moments. But what would you say is your Bear territory moment?
Well, I think it would probably have to be, other than the play, obviously, which I referenced already. I mean, it's, when you're a student, it's never the same as that. So I'll exclude those because, breaking the streak, the 52-game losing streak in basketball to UCLA, winning the 86 big game as massive underdogs in Joe Caps last year, beating SC with the Hardy Nickerson, Mark Hicks game. There's so many moments, but as a fully formed adult, I think I'm gonna say, in 2009, late in that Tedford run, we were good, but Stanford was getting really good, and they were peaking. And Javid Best had that horrible flip the week before, where it looked like something terrible might have happened, but certainly he was not going to play, the next week or anytime soon, after what could have been a bad neck injury. And so, we are now playing at Stanford, and Stanford was good. It was Andrew Luck, early Luck, Harbaugh. They were getting really good, and my friends and I started a game called the Little Game when we were in college, which is just us playing terrible touch football with each other, drinking beers in the huddle. Like, and it degenerated over the years, but we had played our game, and a few of us ended up at the Bears lair, and Mike Tepper was there, our then offensive tackle, who had saved a volleyball player's life by stepping in front of a car, and suffered a horrible injury and had come all the way back. And I knew him, and I knew him somewhat, and we're at there, and he decided to drink some beers with us, which is a true Bear, the day before the most important game of the season. And he wasn't drunk, but he was, he had a couple. And I remember he said, dude, our game plan is, we are going to run, and we're going to run, and then we're going to run some more. And then after that, we're going to run. And I was like, okay, I like it. Now, Shane Vereen had a torn MCL. So that's our backup running back, by the way, but an incredible. This is one of my favorite Cal athletes ever. So, my in-laws were celebrating, and my mother-in-law went to Cal, so this was a problem. They were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary that day. We had a big family celebration in Sacramento, and there's no way we were going to be able to make it to like the 5:00 kickoff, except that I did marry, as I mentioned, a bear, and I raised a future bear. And so somehow my daughter, who at the time was 13, and I managed to slip out early, drive all the way to Palo Alto, park, run. And as we're getting into the stadium, Toby Gerhardt's already scoring a touchdown. We're down 14-0 before I could get her a Coke. It's a disaster. And then Cal just, a lot of Wildcat. Cal just did unbelievable things. And I think Shane ran 42 times for like 186, 4 touchdowns. I mean, just on a torn MCL. And, of course, in the end, Mike Muhammad, makes that interception to save us, intercepting Andrew Luck. And it was right down in the little corner. And the only 3 people, it was me, my daughter Natalie, and AJ, your friend Reza, who is very much like me. And so Mike Muhammad catches the ball. He goes down on a knee. We're, of course, AJ and I are looking for flags because we expect the worst. We see no flags, and we're not, AJ's brilliant. He's a doctor and in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm just a sports writer, but I know math, and I'm starting to do some math, and I'm like, I don't think we have to run a play except to kneel down here. And as it's all starting to sink in, the chant is breaking out. And I'm like, we just won the big game in epic fashion. We are like in the 12th row. We will be on that field very soon with everyone else. And we will be, now I'm tearing up again, we will be making Stanford Bear territory, as it should be. That's always. Right. And the celebration was so good. We went to the Dutch Goose. All our friends met there. We sang the Cal drinking song. There's video of my little daughter, with as we're drinking beers, singing the drinking song. And then I drove all the way back.
Good Lord.
To Yolo County, slept about 2 hours with my heart racing, took a 6 a.m. flight to Denver to go cover a Bronco game at the time for Yahoo Sports. And, slept a little on the plane, rented a car, drove to Mile High Stadium, and they have us parking usually at the very top of this hill. And then you kind of walk down this big grade into the other parking lots where the stadium is. And I'm wearing, of course, I'm wearing a Cal hat and sweatshirt now because I'm in the afterglow. And I just see this faint little shape, like maybe 80 yards away. And it's this young woman running toward me. And she's like, "Go Bears!" And I'm like this, she comes and hugs me, never met her. And I'm like, I was there. And she's like, oh my God.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
So
indeed.
then Denver was Bear territory.
That is an epic story, man. And I remember I was with some friends and I was working as a volunteer for media relations or Cal Athletic Communications at the time. And so I had a media credential and I was up in the press box. And as the end of that game was coming to a close, I went down onto the field because I could just sense that something big was going to happen. And I was just there. I couldn't believe it. And then just to see the Cal fans storm the field, I mean, yeah, that is an experience like no other. And hey, Mike, I know we've kept you
I'll leave you with one last thing. You know what else happened at halftime when we were down by 3?
Yes, Tiger Woods
got on the microphone, and we booed him. And you can see him stop and look like you're booing in 2009. You're booing Tiger Woods, and we're hell yeah, we're booing Tiger.
Yeah, whatever, dude. Yeah, boo.
And he got rattled, and he goes, well, all I can say is the second half is ours, which is a weird thing to say when you're winning and you're favored. And of course, the second half was ours. And if you look it up, 5 days later, the beginning of the downward spiral in his life and career occurred. And I'm not saying Cal did that, but I am saying Tiger Woods had never been booed before. And 5 days later, it got a lot worse. You can look it up.
Yep. Well, not that we would wish anybody ill will or anything by any stretch, but also just because he maybe was coddled a little too much by being at that university down on the peninsula, junior university, maybe that had something to do with it. He just wasn't thick-skinned enough. But hey, but Mike, I don't even know where to begin. You have so many wonderful stories. If you are gracious enough, we would love to have you back on the show later on, because you just, like, you can just go on. And there's just no question. You are like the embodiment of the California spirits.
I think the key is to ask me after just something epic has happened. If the Cal softball team goes and stuns one of the top teams in the country and wins a regional, and Chelsea Spencer continues her march back, if Sharman Smith takes us to yet another level in women's hoops after a really exciting landmark season for her, and we have a kid coming in who just won MVP in one of the All-Star games.
Yeah,
who's supposed to be, I think they call her Puff. Like I'm already ready to fall in love. If this football season goes the way it could, as we reference the schedule and so many other things, but that's when you gotta to hit me, like when something really, really, really magical is happening to do with the Bears, because what am I going to want to talk about? Think I'm going to want to talk about being inside the Jacksonville Jaguars war room, or that?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, you are more than welcome here.
Look, I got a book I want to pitch.
Yes, please.
The Why Is Everything, story of football, rivalry, and revolution. It's really like it. It's about the Shanahan-McVay coaching tree and all its petty and revolutionary splendor. I think people will love it. But right next to it, I have many bobbleheads, including Marshawn on the cart, and one of my favorites, and he's in the back now, is Tedford, because I was in a suite where he was being honored a few years ago. I think in Jim Knowlton's suite, and spent a lot of time with Jeff, who I hadn't seen in a while. And I was at NFL Network at the time, so this was my home studio set. And he was like, "Hey, dude, you've got like Aaron, you've got Goff, you've got Jason Kidd, you've got everyone. How do you not have me?" And I was like, "You know what? That's fair, dude. You provided me with so many great memories." And I was able to hit up someone who worked for the school at the time, and I was like, "Do you guys have any Tedford?" He was like, "Yeah, I'll send you one." I'm like, "All right."
Well, before we get out of here, you've said it several times. You and I are both rocking the softball gear today. You let the world know it's batter up, and pulling for our women. I love the coach. I love her energy. Bay Area. She's from, as we call it, not San Leandro, but from the Dro. And
the Dro,
baby.
and she is.
And so we want to make sure we get behind her and get behind that team. And
I've been to 3 Women's College World Series, and I got to see Chelsea play in one her senior year. By the way, she finished champion, second, and then went in as the number 1 team. They did not. They did not reach the finals that year, but that was the year I saw a regional in Fresno that is one of the most epic sporting events I've ever seen, where Cal, the number 1 team in the country, was down to its last strike on 12 consecutive pitches. 2 were called balls, 9 were fouled off, and the 12th, Haley Woods went like this and hit a double off the top of the wall, scoring 2 runs, and then we came back and won 4 games, won the Super Regional, and went back to the World Series.
There you go, baby.
That's Bear territory. Fresno was Bear territory.
Right, Mike. That is
Bear territory. Go Bears.
Well, hey, again, thank you so much, Mike. You were welcome anytime, and go Bears!
Go Bears!
For life. Thank you.
I got to tell you, we had so much fun with Mike. What an incredible guest. Mike's passion for Cal exemplifies what this podcast is all about. He could probably talk for weeks on end about how much he loves Cal and our sports teams. And how awesome was it that he booed Tiger Woods right along with the rest of us. Before we wrap things up, would you be kind enough to take a minute to help tell the whole damn world about us? Like and subscribe. Share us on your social media. Encourage all your Cal friends to go to our website, tellthewholedamnworld.com. Speaking on behalf of all of us here, including Ahmad and Leslie, we sincerely appreciate all of you out there. Remember to be on the lookout for our next Cal History episode this Friday. Do you know how we got the name, the Golden Bears? You'll need to tune in to hear Leslie tell us all about it. See you later this week. This podcast is about celebrating all things Cal and the prominent people who are passionate about the University of California. Do you feel Cal is the center of the universe? Do you bleed blue and gold? We want you to tell the whole damn world about it. Go Bears!